Patreon.com/the Walk-Off Podcast. $4 a month gets you in there.
Are the Yankees done this offseason? Because especially we just heard some Varsho rumors.
Hello and welcome to the Walk-Off, everybody. I'm Scott Belford, joined as always by the best co-host in the biz, Adam Mack. We are going to talk some Daulton Varsho here. I know that you saw a clip from Talkin' Yanks. Of course, John Boy getting into where they are going to find a left fielder because the Yankees are still in need of a outfielder. The Jays need a fourth outfielder, but the Yankees need a everyday piece that's going to slot in to left field and can maybe relieve Judge from time to time in right field.
Yeah, so since the early days of the Brian Reynolds announcing he wanted a trade, he says, "Trade me." Pirates say, "Sure, but for a king's ransom."
And they
Jays
meant it.
Jays were tied to that organization for a trade for Reynolds. It was an obvious fit. Yankees also tied as well to those rumors. The price was astronomical. Jays turned their sights to Varsho. Apparently, so did the Yankees. This is the news out now. I'll play the clip here.
Yankees were interested or in on Varsho or talking or thinking about the Varsho trade before he went
Right.
to the Blue Jays.
Okay, so the takeaway from this is Yankees were in on Daulton Varsho. That's a green check in my books. If the Yankees wanted him, I feel better about getting him. It's a little bit of a confirmation that, yes, this is a good player we should be excited about. Also,
It does make me think as well, Adam, maybe that is why Lourdes Gurriel Jr. was included.
yeah, if it's a bidding war.
Because let's face it, Lourdes would slot in nicely right now as that fourth outfielder.
Sure. It'd be great.
As we hear the Blue Jays are out there kicking tires on Robbie Grossman, on Adam Duvall. You know, they've been tied to Andrew McCutchen. They are after a fourth outfielder. And I know that if you're looking at what this organization has done in the offseason, you start to question, well, why was Lourdes included then? Because he would fit nicely into that fourth outfield spot. Yeah, but I think they didn't have a choice, right? That was the topper.
If this was the, or the difference between trading away Kirk, maybe it was Gurriel and Kirk, but now it has to be Gurriel and Moreno. And I don't want to get into the weeds about who actually has more value as a trade piece, Kirk or Moreno.
No.
We go back and forth on that all day. But yeah, the big takeaway here is we had to, or else we get outbid, and it's another offseason of going, this front office is never willing to go above and beyond to get deals done. We saw it with the Jose Ramirez with the Cleveland Guardians last season, right? We spent months pursuing Jose Ramirez, and boy, would that have been nice. But the team wasn't willing to go the extra mile to pull the trigger.
And I think the front office regrets that now.
I was going to say, maybe we've learned from that. Maybe we do feel a little bit snake bitten and don't want to have those same regrets, right? So maybe that was a factor. I am also curious now, as reports are out, that the Texas Rangers also in on Brian Reynolds. Texas Rangers really want to be a good team.
Mm-hmm.
They are spending money. They're making trades. If they're in on Brian Reynolds and the Yankees are in on Brian Reynolds, I'm not sure that a deal gets done before opening day, but there might be a deal by the trade deadline. And I think, again, it felt like a big price to pay for Daulton Varsho. Once we see whatever the trade is, whether it's this week, this month, this trade deadline, whenever it happens for Brian Reynolds, I think we're going to look at the price of that trade and go, holy smokes, was Daulton Varsho ever a good deal?
Very possible.
Right? When you see the prospects and the names attached to the Brian Reynolds trade, if it is the Yankees and the Rangers in a bidding war for him, I think we're going to look and go, man, that was awesome.
Brian Reynolds has a more established track record, but there's nothing to say that Daulton Varsho isn't the better player to begin with there. He's definitely much better defensively. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at his power, they're pretty equal there. Yes, Brian Reynolds is an incredible piece to whatever team that he winds up going to. But I think that the Blue Jays landing Daulton Varsho when the competitor, the team they were bidding against, is the team they are going to be fighting it out with for that AL East Division championship all season long, that is worth throwing in that topper. And that's the thing with Lourdes Gurriel Jr., right? Is he is going to contribute to a Diamondbacks team that is also trying to take a step forward. And that was what was interesting with this trade is, yes, they moved on from Varsho. A lot of that had to do with the depth that they had in the outfield.
Right? That Corbin Carroll, probably rookie of the year this year.
Even Alec Thomas is going to be excellent in that outfield for the Diamondbacks.
I feel good about this trade.
I am feeling better about it even more so as information like this comes out.
Agreed.
Buddy, do you know how frustrated Jays fans would be if we lost out to Daulton Varsho? Really, even though you may say it was an overpay, the perfect fit, a left-handed bat, defensively, just night and day above what they had.
Especially when he's hitting 30 home runs in Yankee Stadium.
From the left side.
It's just, yeah, like, again, I'm not sure it was an overpay. I like the deal. I mean, all
Yes.
the online trade value calculators and whatever actually say Jays came out on the right side of the trade value calculator. I don't know how much stock you put in those websites. Personally, I don't, but it's worth mentioning. I like the trade. I think I like it more, like you said, with that perspective of, yeah, if he had gone to the Yankees and we had watched another season where the Yankees came up as second fiddle, because I felt that's how last year felt.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt like we, especially, I don't know why it came out like mid-season, this Justin Verlander news.
Oh, wasn't that just a
kick in the ribs, man? I just felt like, so this, again,
I almost felt like keep it to yourself at that point. I don't need you reporting on our losses once you find them out.
I mean, look, Brandon Belt isn't Justin Verlander. Daulton Varsho isn't Justin Verlander. They're not Jose Ramirez. But I do think that, like you said, with the Jose Ramirez talk, this front office probably felt a little bit of like, oh, we should have pushed harder. In hindsight, does last year's team look better? Hey, I love Matt Chapman. Love him. Okay. I hope he's a J for a long time. Not sure he will be. But do I feel better about last year's team if Jose Ramirez is our third baseman? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Probably the best third baseman in baseball. Jays probably had some regret that they didn't just throw in that extra prospect that Cleveland wanted or whatever the case may be. I don't know. Maybe they don't regret it. But it had to have been a factor. Not going the extra mile for Justin Verlander, watching him win a World Series this year. Those have to be in the calculus when it comes to pulling the trigger on a Daulton Varsho. Maybe spending something that makes you a little bit uncomfortable to grow. That's life.
Agree 100%. I know you constantly hear from Blue Jays Nation, the fandom here truly believes that maybe Brandon Belt was a bit of an overpay with that $9.3 million over 1 year. I know there's a lot of baseball fans that a 1-year deal is never an overpay, but I think that maybe that is why this front office went a little bit heavy on the offer for Brandon Belt. We don't know who the competition was. We don't know if there were $8 million deals out there. And this is the thing. When you're in your contention window, and yes, I know there's a bunch of negative Nancys out there who were calling for the Blue Jays to be a 4th place team. And the worst part is these people are going to be upset when they're wrong. What fun is that kind of fandom? But you do you, okay? You do you, that's fine. But I think that Brandon Belt getting that $9 million was just another example of this front office going into 2023 being like, we are not losing out to guys we're after, to the Yankees, to this team, to the Dodgers, whoever it may be, right? Like when they have sharpened their sights in on somebody, they have decided if this is the guy we're after, we're going all in.
Well, here's 2 points I'll make, and then I'll leave it to you to wrap up here. in that same podcast episode, and I'll link to it in the show notes, of course. Big shout out to John Boy Media. Great independent baseball coverage there. Yankees fandom through and through. They are not shy about the fact they are Yankees fans. Very upset that the Yankees lost out on Daulton Varsho to the Blue Jays. That makes me feel good. Also worth noting, Jake with John Boy there in that same episode, that same conversation, is frustrated. Has the Jays as a better team.
I think Houston's lineup, Toronto's lineup, I think they've got us. And I love the Rodon signing. He's obviously nasty and probably best 1-2 punch in baseball. I don't know. It just feels weird coming off of a postseason where the offense was the problem, and it feels like it didn't really get addressed.
I'm not here to say from A to Z the Blue Jays are a better team, but it is nice to see a Yankees fan acknowledge the fact that Jays are probably going to be a side in their thorn and the team to beat in the AL East.
Thorn in their side, but yes, we get what you're saying. Kick
What did
that
I-
cat down the road.
What
Adam.
did I say?
A side in their thorn.
Yeah, side in their thorn. You know how it goes. Hey, get your
Oh.
side off my thorn. You're really dulling the point of my thorn here with that cushiony side of yours. All right, let's wrap it up here, shall we, Scott? We've gone on off the rails long enough.
Sounds good. Hey, I just want to give a big shout out to the walk-off community. Listen, we are pushing 1,500 subscribers on our Clips channel, and we are pushing 4,000 subs on our main channel. And we just thank you so very much for every
Big time.
click you've done, every like you've hit. We really appreciate it. And to the audio listeners out there, you guys
Booming.
are unbelievable. Like, literally, we're up from last year almost over 1,000% in growth.
Wild.
We're getting over 1,000 downloads an episode. So thank you so very much. Follow us on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. Join the Discord. The link is in the show notes. It's always free, and you can become a Patreon member. A big shout out to anyone who has done that recently. Thank you so very much, everybody. Cheers.